everyone. Welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker Training. I'm Richard Carlton here at fmtraining.tv, where every day, Monday through Friday, except on weekends and certain holidays, we are doing a FileMaker live stream training on various topics, from beginning to intermediate to very advanced topics. Margaret, I want to confirm that this coming Monday, while it's a holiday, you folks are still doing the show. Is that a true statement?
It is a true statement because I realized too late that it was a holiday and
You're supposed to have the day off, and you're going to be working anyway, right?
Yep, and I am not resubmitting 20 events to Claris 5 times over, so.
Right, yeah, no doubt. All right, cool. So I'm going to press the button here, take a look at the upcoming broadcast schedule. So for those of you who are in the U.S. who'll be off, you might miss Monday with Nick. I can't do anything about that. But he will be running the show, be here regardless. So if you go to fmtrain.tv, kind of the headquarters for the live stream here, you can hit the left tab right here. You can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. Today we're doing transient notifications, right? We're going to go into it a little deeper. We did send an invite to Kyle Williams. So if he starts snarking and talking and whatever, he's supposed to be in the Zoom call with us. It's always kind of fun. So then next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, once again, Nick will be doing his design and modernization workshops, the ongoing thing. JavaScript indicators and what is my FileMaker latency. It's next week's JavaScript topic is kind of more of a deep dive. Now, some of you asked yesterday, we were asking what topics would you like to see covered in JavaScript? And most of us here, most of the people watching this live stream don't code JavaScript, but we know that it would be beneficial to learn it. The JavaScript indicators, what we want to do is pick up a conversation on some basic charting or dashboarding with JavaScript. I think we mentioned this to Leland. I have not heard a response back from him, but hopefully we will see that. And then Friday of next week, we are going to be using on-idle triggers in FileMaker. So today and next Friday are both my presentations to beginning and more intermediate developers, I think, for the most part. So once again, very different than what Nick does. It's kind of like I'm the anti-Nick and Nick is the anti-Richard, or whatever you want to call that. We come at things very differently. I think we both appreciate each other, but how we solve the problem sometimes is a little different. My presentation today and next Friday largely is going to be covering for some really gaping holes in the platform. Gaping holes that are so big, I think it's reasonable to assume that the issues I'm talking about today affect probably 90% plus of the people who build a solution in FileMaker or use a solution in FileMaker. So that's why today is such a I consider it a high traffic item. In fact, it's so high traffic that I'm adding it into FM starting point. So let's talk about today's broadcast. Once again, as a reminder, you want to support the channel because of all the free stuff that we do. Once again, I'm about to give more free away. Feel free to purchase one of our training bundles down here to go to fmtrain.tv, press the bundles button, purchase one of the training bundles. That's how you show your support, keep the lights on here. So what I'm going to do real quick is we've been updating the link, and Margaret's going to post this for all of you here, to FM starting point 23 Lite. Now, this is the X2 version. I'm only talking about the X2. I'm only talking about the Lite version. It's the one that I personally use. It's the one that I need for training. And I'm going to pop this open and fire it up. And so one of the things that's ongoing with this is that we continue to clean things out of it. So Nick had some really interesting hacks in terms of popover windows. I've carved those out, restored them to normal popover windows. Apparently, Nick decided he did not like the little triangle thing right there, so he went through this big song and dance to try to do something to get rid of the triangle. From my perspective, the triangle there doesn't bother me, and so I'm happy to have it there, and it makes the life a lot simpler in terms of implementing this solution. If Kyle shows up, let me know because I won't see it otherwise. So I've gone through and simplified this. This software, the FM starting point 23, is the basis of what I use for Big Valley Aviation, which is where I've been doing on-site with the helicopter maintenance operation and building solutions for them. They're actively using it. In fact, they're all addicted to FileMaker now. That's normally what happens with the FileMaker platform. If you show people the platform, you let them play with the platform, you see the value of the platform sells itself. But you need a developer, someone who has their together to do that, right? That's what you have to do. That's why all of you do that. All of us together here are that group of people. So let's talk about one of the two gaping holes in the platform that I ran into on this deployment. And the issue goes around notifications. So what I want to do is pop over to, if I can pop over to the browser real quick. So Margaret's going to post this link here. This is a YouTube video. I've talked about this before. I cannot say enough good things about this video. The first 20, 30 minutes of this video, it's an hour video. I like to watch this at least twice a year. It reminds me of fundamentals. And the first parts of this conversation is this guy. So this guy is worked for Apple as a designer and a coder. And then he started his own startup, which was sold off to Disney or something, right? So he is successful. And once again, he is a big believer in the formulas that made Steve Jobs successful, that makes Apple successful today. You want to surprise and delight. There's a solution you have, and it's hard to surprise and delight if you have a solution that just sucks. And so the whole idea with this conversation, with this live stream, this webinar that's here, it's on YouTube with this link. It's actually this is a recording of it. The original one was in a Flash player. This goes back to 2011. But the success, the ability to be successful in the FileMaker platform or in technology in general hasn't changed in the last 10 or 15 years, right? The internet's gotten better, computers got faster. Now we're playing with AI a little bit, but the fundamental to build a product that surprises and delights. It just doesn't surprise, it just doesn't delight, it surprises and delights. It's essential. It's the things that make Apple successful. It's the things that I would say people have forgotten. Okay. And so I highly recommend you watch this video. I'm not going to watch it with you, but if we sat here for the first 3 minutes and watch this together, it would be time well spent, trust me. So this is about making apps that don't suck. One of the big things that he gets into here is he's talking about user interfaces and throwing up modal dialogues. He spends his time talking about modal dialogues. FileMaker only has the ability to throw up a modal dialogue, essentially, or a non-transitory dialogue or notification. It can only throw up a message that you have to manually click on to release. It doesn't have what I would call a transient notification where the notification kind of comes on screen. It says, by the way, this is happening. And then after a period of time that you define, it kind of floats away. That's an essential feature. This guy in this app talking about surprising and delighting and making great applications is talking about dialogue hell. And so that is the world that we live in with FileMaker. Luckily, there are a number of great, talented developers out there who help compensate to make the product, the platform better, even when Claris won't do it themselves. And so I'm talking in today's situations, the follow on to the conversation we had before where I was at Big Valley Aviation, and we had no way to nicely alert the person that things were happening, that things were occurring, without them saying, yes, you've got to click it, and yes, you've got to click it now, and yes, you acknowledge the fact that this is happening, blah, 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 blah. FileMaker doesn't have that ability. It should, it doesn't, right? Why? I don't know. So let's talk about how we solve this problem. So we understand that we need the ability to if you press a button and you want something to happen, you need to alert the person that it happened. Now, the other day we were talking about in the Big Valley Aviation application that we would press a button, and if the screen reacted to you, then you knew that happened. You knew that the button worked. Something happened, right? So if I pressed the new estimate button, the screen flashed. Okay. Now you may or may not notice that I've jumped the estimate, but the point is that you could tell something happened. The problem that comes in is that when we were in the Big Valley Aviation solution is that you press a button, you need something to happen, but there really isn't going to be an immediate proof or evidence of something happening. I mean, it's like it's like a crime. It's like if someone is accused of murdering someone, but there's no body and there's no weapon. There's no evidence. So you don't really know, like someone says, "I hate Richard, I'm going to kill Richard." And then Richard disappears. Okay. What happens? We don't know. No body, no crime. Did anything happen? We may have gotten rid of Richard, okay? But since there's no body and no weapon and no evidence, no video, you don't really know. So how do you know that it really happened? You need some sort of transient notification, transient alert notification. So Kyle Williams, who is very talented, who should be around, but he is, oh, he's here. He just
I'm
hasn't
here.
shown up. Oh, you're here. Kyle
I'm
showed
here.
up.
Yeah.
Margaret's supposed to alert me when you show up. So, so Kyle built this file. Margaret, do we have that file somewhere? I want to look at that file.
I will be linking it right now.
So the Kyle did a live stream for us. Kyle Williams is one of the contributors to in the community. And he created this notification system because we were talking about, it's one of the things that FileMaker has not really modernized their interface. This interface uses essentially CSS, things like that, but there's been opportunities where they should modernize the tools and things. They haven't made those investments. They've been investing in cloud and some other stuff, the Claris Studio, things that I don't need, right? Or are of no immediate use. So the things that I immediately need, I don't have, so we have to roll our own. So let's talk about that. Now, this has also been turned into an add-on. I'm not going to get into the conversation about add-ons today because moving this into your solution is sufficiently simple that I am not terribly worried about it. So this is Kyle's alerts and notifications. What I've done in this new version of Starting Point is I've glued in what I consider the minimum essential elements. Now, we're going to dive under the hood here a little bit. I'm going to show you what I did first. And then as we get past what I did, then if Kyle wants to talk about it a little bit, if you have questions for him about some of the underpinnings, that's important. So first off, let me demonstrate this for you over here. So this is your interface, and say that you need to alert someone that something has happened. This is an alert. It pops up on screen. It says this is a warning. You can set the time delay. You can set the color, right? Now, these are both yellow alerts. Some of these other alerts in here that Kyle has, which I think are interesting, but to me less useful, are the ones that require direct user intervention, right? That one was a transient alert there. Bottom navigation comes up from the bottom. Is it transient? Yeah, so some of these are transient, some of them are not. The ones that I'm mostly interested in are the ones that self-dismiss themselves, right? If that makes sense. So what we did is I took this demo, and to move it into Starting Point, it has two custom functions in here that you need to move first. You move those first. So I'm just going to go over to custom functions. These are the two custom functions that are in here. This is the version 2 of the Kyle sample file, two custom functions. So you're going to move those over. After you do that, you're going to go over into Script Workspace, and you're going to come over here and grab essentially this one script right here. I guess there's this one here too. I haven't played with this.
There's two different kinds. If you go back to the file, to the layout, and in the bottom right below the line, below that solid line, that's the other code. Those 6 buttons there.
Oh, for the alternate
different style of alert.
Yeah.
In case you don't like the one that slides in. Personally, I like the one you've been showing and the one you've been using.
Yeah,
way better.
The issue to me, I would take anything at this point, considering we've had nothing right in the platform.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for it to do anything. So what we did is, the couple things I had is, one, it appears to manifest itself out of blue sky, and so I made a decision, a Starting Point, that, and I've been testing this with this customer, is that these buttons right here are fine, but putting stuff over here, which is what Nick likes to do, that has to be like, it's like you have to relocate the bear. Whenever you have Yogi Bear in Tahoe, the bears are always going through the trash cans at McDonald's, eating all the food, like that. So they shoot the bear with a tranquilizer, they put him in a cage, they trap and relocate him. We have to trap and relocate these items to get them out of the way. What you end up doing is you have to preload a web viewer. So we're back to this JavaScript conversation. And the reason I'm not getting into the code right now, because I want to show you what you can do without getting all crazy into the code. Then Kyle can kind of bring up the conversation in the latter part of the hour to talk about the code part of it, if you folks have questions about this. This box right here is where it's going to display. So I have to carve out a spot where this will live. Now, here's the rub, is that part of my problem was that this menu across the top is kind of in the way was underneath over here. And on the Mac, it behaves fairly well, but on Windows, because I'm a cross-platform person, my customers at that helicopter operation are all Windows people. They don't give a shit about Mac. They don't even know why Macs are even in existence. They don't know why they're special or why they're useful. Now, you may not believe that, but that's fine. That's cool. But they are there. It's what I choose to use because I find myself to be more effective. For them, it's a foreign concept. So they use Windows. It's no problem. But the web viewer interactions on Windows is a little bit trickier. And so you want to kind of carve out a spot on the interface that's reserved for the web viewer, and nothing else will go in there. And so what I'm having to do with starting point is slide this item down, this whole menu bar down to the left a little bit, and then the items that were up here, like the attachments, I've moved over here so they're out of the way. So we get to a spot where we have, this is your interface. It doesn't look horrible. We took that, moved it down there, and so you have this spot here. That is my reserved spot for the transient notifications to alert. Now, let's talk about what happened. I added the two custom functions, and I added the script. And what I tried to do is make it as simple as possible, because when I'm working at Big Valley Aviation doing stuff with them, I don't have time to screw around and read JavaScript. All I need to do, from my perspective, is I have a green alert, a happy alert, a yellow alert, like a warning alert, and a red alert that bad juju happened, something bad happened, or something that's an error, right? So now, to me, green, yellow, and red mean something, like stoplights. If you're in a country where there are no stoplights, or those colors mean nothing to you, you can choose and change the colors yourself. It's a little more technical. But the idea here is that I created this transient notification section starting point. There are Kyle's two scripts. This is from the version 2. So we fully credit Kyle with the hard work he's done. Kyle, in turn, credits the people he stole it from. Probably an open source solution, right? Which is great.
Yeah, there was an open source solution where somebody had created a demo. It wasn't set up to work in FileMaker, though. So I had to do a lot of modifications in order to import it into FileMaker. And then to be able to provide our own custom SVGs, you can see a bunch of script steps there where it says SVG. So you can take any SVG, you can create your own, you can put it in here, and you can show that in your notification.
Let me show how that works. So what I did is I took Kyle's demo, then I grabbed one of Kyle's buttons from over here, because the button, the way he does it, and once again, I'm not in any way picking on Kyle. Kyle is comfortable with buckets and volumes of command line code in your face, okay? I, on the other hand, when I'm trying to set up a command line, don't want to see this much, okay? As a professional developer, if I'm comfortable with this, that's fine, but I would try to limit the amount of just, if I have to explain to people that F2 is white, that's a conversation. I don't want to have to do it unless they want to have that conversation. So for beginning, intermediate, I try to obscure all this. So what we did on my end, I'm going to move this and just kind of close it, move it out of the way, is I set up 3 simplification scripts that help us with this. I have show green, transient notification, show yellow, show red. And when we call these, we pass them 3 values: the message, the time it's going to be on screen, and the icon of the 5 or 6 that Kyle built into it. And so if I want to, down here I have a button, and I'm going to run it, and this button will call all 3 back to, would never make sense to do this, but I've got all 3. And so when I call the script, all I have to do is call the green, I pass the message, the delay, and then the icon. That's all I have to do. And so it simplifies it to the maximum amount. Any higher level of simplification, this would require involvement from Claris. So what I did is, so I'm going to go ahead and do this for everyone here. I'm just going to run this down here. So say we're on a project or a job and we're doing things, and you need to alert the person, and not modally alert them, like throw a custom dialogue where they have to say, okay, nothing happens without it, or you get another menu, like you could pop a little dialogue, and it's, with FileMaker, you can do this already, and it pops it, and it's sitting over here, some little window, and it says, yeah, Tutti Frutti went to dog bed 55. And you have to, the window sits here. It doesn't dismiss itself. It just stuck. And so you have to come over here and say, dismiss, okay, I saw your message. And then maybe you throw another message. So the road to hell is paved with the lack of transient notifications. And once again, they talk about it in that video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this script real quick so you can see these coming. They're pretty easy to understand. So it flies on the screen. So I said green, and when you set up the green, you had the dark green, a light green. It's all handled in there for you. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. As long as you like green, it's good. You pass the message. The 3 seconds there was something we specify. It likes milliseconds, so take the number of seconds, multiply by 1,000. That's the number you put in there. There's a pause. Then I'm going to give you the yellow one. Possible foobar. Possible foobar warning. Right now, we could set these to require the user to dismiss them. Then you could kind of do that with a card style window already, right? I mean, technically, it's the whole idea that these things self-dismiss is the essential element. That's why we call them transient, right? Like homeless people, they kind of come and then they go whenever they want to. Well, in this case, we're telling the little window to leave. And so I clean one more. It says definite foobar. So it's red in color, black text, little exclamation point. So that's it. So how hard is that? But doing this and having this available and having a built-in starting point makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference to people who are trying to alert their customers that they press a button or something happened. And the whole idea with the notification transient is if the person sees it, great. If they don't see it because they're on the phone and they're on fire and all this, then it's okay that they didn't see it. It's what I would call a courtesy notification. If it's something that, man, you need to just, acknowledge this, then I pop a card. It's modal. The idea of modal means that nothing else happens until you say, you dismiss it, okay, or cancel or whatever. Or you could have it pop up at the top and it just hangs out in perpetuity until until someone clicks it and releases it, right? So are any of those like that?
Yeah, there's show alert, allow user to exit, that button. And okay, I think
so that's one's right there. So it's up there, but it's not modal. So you're still over here doing stuff, you're typing, you're doing stuff, database. It's up there, and so we're saying, hey, you have to dismiss this. This is useful, but to me, it's not the ultimate essential item as opposed to what I call the self-dismissing or the transient notification. So questions about this, Margaret? There's Ruben with the frog. It's not easy being green. That's correct. Anyway, so the idea with the notifications, I consider it essential. And you could overuse it and use it too much, but the idea is that you throw it up if you want to alert the user that something has happened. They did something and something happened. If you press a button and nothing happens, you're going to press it 20 times, right? And so that's not a good thing, right? So the idea is that you press it, an alert, something tells you that something happened. FYI, process started on PSOS. FYI, processed correctly. FYI, it's all good. FYI, it failed horribly. Really, really, really essential little tools that we have. So Next Tech and Jonathan are asking questions. Is there a way to stack the notification to make it a list? I don't think that's built into this with JavaScript.
That could be my 3.0 version. I can work on
3.0 stack them, right? So have the notifications keep stacking.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it would. But just keep in mind that the person is going to take them potentially out of context, right? So
to use it in WebDirect, in order to get interactivity, you have to prefix it. So there's some text that you have to put before the HTML in order to get things to work in WebDirect sometimes. I haven't tested it recently in WebDirect. I imagine it would work now.
It might. The WebDirect, I always hate, it's like people using WebDirect, and it's like, if you can avoid doing that, right? You always get farther, faster with less aggravation by using Pro. If you need WebDirect because you really have an Android application, right? And you can't get it any other way, then yeah, I totally get that. But people tend to they tend to try to make WebDirect into Pro, and it's just never going to be that good. The other thing, feedback that came back is we had a customer just upgrade from FileMaker 17 server because they were slacking it to the new 23, and there's been a lot of improvements even from the release of 19.6 to the FileMaker 23 server release with WebDirect. It's a lot better, a lot faster. And so Claris is continuing to invest quite a bit to keep their tech working on a web browser. Everyone thinks, oh, it's so simple, but yeah, no, it's a trick deal. Yeah, Foxy Jack says, yeah, we'd love to see individual message context. Yeah, that's the rub with this stuff, is that if you throw up a message saying successful, okay, because it just transpired because you pressed the button, the user associates it correctly with what happened. Now, keep in mind, it's asynchronous, so we call it and tell it to fire, but then meanwhile, our FileMaker script keeps going. So the version 1 of the alert notification would make calls onto the internet. So if you didn't have an internet connection, it might not work correctly. Now, Kyle, I'm going to ask you the question: if I can't unplug my computer right now because then none of you could see me, but if I have a local file and I unplug the internet completely, there's no internet access, does the alert notifications version 2 work correctly?
Yeah, version 2 should work. So I pulled down all the JavaScript. I put it inside of an insert text script step, and so it should all be offline.
So it'll function offline, which is a big deal.
Correct.
Which is really great.
Yeah, that was part of the 2.0, because the 1.0 had that problem where it wouldn't work offline. And so that was one of the upgrades I made with 2.0.
Ken says, you want to read that? Well, I'll read it, then you can answer it. The text box file solution is just to show you can handle to work while notification is coming and going. Yeah, I think that's the case, right? So if you're over here.
Yeah, to kind of bring us back to historical. So how this all started is I was presenting a demo file, and I had this notification thing that I made, and I was using a couple button bars, and it would show which button bar I wanted to show, and it would use a slide animation to have it slide into view, and then it would slide out of view. And the whole time, Richard was pointing out that you can't type while that script is running, because it'll interrupt the script, and then you'll get these weird notifications saying that the user is trying to modify stuff while the script is running, and it just wouldn't work. It broke it. Sorry. Richard then challenged me to come up with a better solution, and so in the next week I came up with a solution. Like, here you go.
Yeah, but see, this is what happens when you make great contributions to the community. It moves the community forward, right? And so so the idea is that you can have these things, they can slide down from the top, they can slide from the left. In my case, because I read left to right, the left side of the screen is more essential for me. So notice that we have more essential things on the left, and then you kind of read, at least in typical English language that I have, but I read top to bottom, left to right, or left to right, top to bottom. And so for us, it makes sense. But you need to reserve a spot over here. Now, in Kyle's solution, let's talk about one little subtle nugget in here with Kyle's solution. Kyle's is a little bit taller and a little bit longer, and I made mine a little bit smaller because I needed to live in that little nuggety little happy spot. So what I did is that you could go into his code and make a minor adjustment. In fact, what I will do, I may hit cancel. Let me come over here to script workspace on his. Let me see if I can find where you stuck that, because you have this thing.
It has to do with the padding. I think it was a parameter.
Well, padding is one, and then there's also where you have the length. The size was a minimum of 420 or something, and I changed it to like 350. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you can change the size of the web viewer, and then there's some CSS that you can manually adjust. I had to do the same thing. So vertical padding. I can see it in the JSON parameter. It says vertical padding.
JSON parameters.
If you move that right there in the sample parameter, it says vertical padding at the very bottom of the JSON.
Oh yeah, okay. I changed that, but the other one was the overall length, the left and right.
Yeah.
Length, and I had to make that smaller because it was chewing through too much of my menu up here, right? So it kept running into stuff, and I didn't want to give it that much room, so I gave it like 20% or 25% less, and it was reasonably happy. I'm just trying to figure out.
I think I had a custom function in there that scaled the web viewer down.
That could be, but I changed it in here somewhere.
Yeah, in the CSS parameter.
By the way, notice how this bug in FileMaker. I hate that. Let's see. Target specified text. Yeah, here we go. There's the 420. That is what I changed to
Yep.
350 or something, right? So,
Yeah.
and that fixed it. I don't know if that's the correct way of fixing it, but that fixed my issue. And so I changed it down to, you could do it like that just for fun. I'll break this one. I'll hit OK, save, close, come over here. No, I don't know that one. Is that it, the right one? Maybe that's not the right one. But the idea is that you can change the overall length of this thing that it occupies, which is nice.
There it is. Yeah, now it's smaller.
Is it smaller?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, it is smaller. Okay, great.
Smaller
Yeah.
than-
Took it a second. Oh, yeah, because the web viewer didn't get the, okay, got it. Yeah. All right, so yeah, so it's a little smaller now on this one.
Slightly different code when you're coming in from the top or bottom.
Yeah. So once again, so that's why I parked. So what I'm doing with Starting Point, you guys and gals can download this one right here. But but if you go to accounts over here, then you have pixel shift, right? It's all good. Then you get the projects. So I'm gonna go through all of them and make them so they're consistent with projects over here. So that's one of the little things that we're gonna do. And we're also cleaning up more of Nick's snickiness that's in here. So anyway. Can you use a remote app? Can you use a remote app with FileMaker? I mean, you can, like in the training where we did, like FileMaker is a data source, right? It's not a question. You can, it's a statement. You can use a remote app. Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that. Labo, yeah, because I thought, Labo's been around. He knows the answer to that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Ruben, okay, so Ruben says he loves WebDirect because he doesn't have to install FileMaker Pro, and it's great. I would only say that if you're going to use WebDirect and you want to use it reliably, you can't get excessively crazy in, like Nick is like, I've had people who, Nick works on the project, and the problem is that Nick is a really he's a special person. He's very talented. Most people can't follow along with what Nick builds in WebDirect. And so I try to keep WebDirect simpler so you have less likely to run into problems with it. So when people try to get really crazy with interface design, I try to tap that down. Nick is an outlier, shall we say. He's the guy who actually built iTunes. Remember the iTunes app? Which has now been replaced on the app Mac by TV and music and stuff. He built iTunes and FileMaker, perfect fidelity replication, and that's how he got his job at Claris, because no one had ever done anything that they'd seen quite like that, right? But he's a little bit of an outlier. So I always recommend people, unless you're Nick, don't go completely user interface crazy with WebDirect, because at some point some browser will change something, and the more complex it is, the more likely you are to try to it'll break, and then you're dealing with tech support. So that's Ruben's opinion, is great. I try to avoid customer unhappiness or dissatisfaction, and one of the ways you do that is by over promising and under delivering. And if you tell everyone everything I build in Pro I could build in WebDirect, that's a big promise. It's generally not an accurate statement.
Yeah, I was posting in Discord a screenshot of a custom function I made, and it basically looks for that prepended text, and if it doesn't exist, it adds it. Otherwise, it just leaves the code as is.
If you want to show your screen and walk through this a little bit, Kyle, I'm open for that. Is your computer in a safe for live stream configuration?
Yeah, so basically what this custom function does is it looks for this text right here. If the code doesn't start with data :text /HTML, comma, then it's not always going to work correctly in WebDirect. And usually what that means is you're not going to be able to interact with the web viewer. So if you have like a interactive charting or something, you're not going to be able to interact with it until it starts with that code. And this only applies to WebDirect. So if I intend for a web viewer feature to work in WebDirect, I'll use my custom function and then I'll just reference the HTML code. And I'm doing this prepend and doing the check to see if the left 15 are that same code. So that way I don't do that code twice, because you don't want to double it up. That'll break the code. So that's kind of just checking to see if it's there first before it prepends it. So that way, either way, if your original code has it already, it's not going to break. If it doesn't have it, it'll add it. It's not going to break. So that's what I did there. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, that it's a pretty simple custom function I created, and it helps me out a lot, especially when I'm trying to make things WebDirect compatible.
All right, cool. Very, very good. Other questions we have? I know it's kind of Friday and we didn't super stuff this, but it's I think this is an essential skill to have, to, even if you don't want to roll your own notification, transient notification, they need to be in your toolbox, in the platform, in the product. And since it's not, then this is kind of, Kyle built this, and then we're going to glue it in Starting Point. That'll help some people who start with Starting Point, but some people who don't, or you already have a solution, which is great, you're going to need to implement it. So Kyle, is the add-on thing working? Because really adding this yourself was pretty easy to add this to your existing solution. Copy the 2 custom functions, then copy the 2 scripts or the 1 scripts, then go find then put the 1 object on the layout, and the object is named. So you're going to put that object on the layout. So that's step 3, right? If I go to projects, go to layout mode. So step 1, custom function. Step 2, drop the scripts. And step 3, put this object on the layout, call it, this one's called web write. I didn't want to rename it. It's called web write. And then you put the button on here from Kyle, put the button on here, and then you've got basic functionality. So it's pretty simple to do. If you're intermediate developer, you can definitely do it. If you're brand new, it's a little bit much to chew off, I think. Ruben says, how does that work? Maybe Kyle's web app on WebDirect, so it doesn't work indeed.
Okay, so I guess I need to do a little bit of work to make this work in WebDirect and release it 3.0.
There you go. If you want to do that,
I'll work on it. Maybe I'll add that the call stack too.
Yeah, the call stack. This is just, I know people say that because their computer does the call stack where you can go in here and get your notifications, and I'm not a big fan of those, because I have all sorts of things that notify me about stupid that I don't, I have the first thing I do on a Mac is turn off every last notification. So because of the people, some of you are like this, you're central to a lot of projects and stuff. So you get constantly bombarded by every email. And you got an email, then you got an email from Amazon. And then, oh, Facebook, someone posted. Turn all that off, and that way you could focus on your job and get work done, right? So I turn everything off. Unfortunately, absolutely everything. And that way I don't get distracted. And as it is, it's still hard for me to put in 4 or 5 hours of programming time during the day. I've been doing it lately, which is great. I love, actually, I've gone back and doing this. I love doing it. I enjoy it very much. So cool. So Ruben says your browser proxy sent a question that the server did not understand.
I'll do some testing, and we'll see about putting out a 3.0 for everyone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's don't kill yourself, but if it works, it works. That's great. But yeah, the notifications are essential, and that's also one reason why Claris is hesitant about building new features and stuff, because they have to support it on 3 different platforms. So they have to support on Pro, Go, and WebDirect, and Pro is on Mac and Windows, and WebDirect is on 3 different browsers at least, and Go is on, well, yeah, I don't even know. You'd have a couple different. I mean, Apple should take care of it for you, but there's something always breaks, whether you folks understand this or not. A lot of times there's bugs in FileMaker, and they're caused by the companies whose operating systems you're running on. So you're running on Microsoft. I remember there being one problem, and I talked to Clay Mackel, and he was trying to figure out how to solve it, because it solved it for this one little group of people that had this obscure patch. But if you were before that or after that on your operating system, the bug didn't exist. But if you're in this middle tier, like a Ventura .1 point, 1 dot, whatever it is, 16.1 or 15.1 or whatever it is, it was broke. But if you were on before that or after that, it wasn't a problem. And so Claris is always wrestling not only with all their own induced problems, but all the problems from the other manufacturers who make their lives miserable, right? Microsoft, Apple, I guess Google with the Android operating system, because they're testing the browser with that, I guess. Cool. Well, I don't have too much more. The Lynn from Osos. Any other final questions? Starting point already has a zillion custom functions. Yeah, you know, it does have a zillion custom functions. And one of the things I've been working on is to remove the custom functions that are not obvious and overly useful. There are quite a few in here. Some of them are pretty obvious, like their color, there's unformat, some other things. There's some other items in here that I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure fully work the way they're supposed to, right? Or maybe that we just don't. They fell out of favor, right? But yeah, there's quite a few in here. Some of these have to do with generating a random. If you want like a random date or a random street or random number, things like that. Some of this is pretty interesting and useful. But yeah, there's. I noticed that for a media sandbox, there was more in here than I wanted, but. Like earlier this morning, I was trying to clean up some of Nick's scripts, and even though it said they weren't being referenced, Nick was accessing them via indirection, which is really, once again, not something we need in a beginning basic product, a training product. And so I had a breaking starting point. So I've got to go through and find a way of removing all his indirection out of there. So when you call a script, a lot of indirection where you call a script, but you don't specifically talk to the script. You don't, the products like base elements, which we use to determine if something's not being used anymore, doesn't have real telemetry. So that's the downside of that. It makes cleanup really hard. So if you're the person who's responsible, I mean, we could just keep duct taping stupid shit on starting point, but the whole point is that you actually want to use it because it's light, it's clean, it's fluffy, you know, crisping, clean, and no caffeine. That was wasn't that 7-Up's tagline from years ago? That's what you want your starter solution to be, right? Crisp and clean with no unused shit. That's a waste of space, right? So, well, not every day is going to be a big time intellectual overload. Next Friday, we're going to be going into record locking hell and how to get your customers to get the hell out of a record and force them out of a record when they walk away, right? All right, that's it. Appreciate it. Have a good one, everyone. I'll catch you on, or Margaret will catch you on Monday. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.